Coming live. I've done a couple Periscopes this weekend, but nothing where I really discussed at length any of the things that I'm thinking about when it comes to Charlottesville. And I got a lot of thoughts about this. There's so many different angles about what's going on in Charlottesville. There's so many different types of questions. There's so many things you could say. You know, who is funding these groups? What is going on? Clearly, the most important thing for the president is to understand how this is going to affect his standing, how is it going to affect his presidency. This will be used to accelerate the deep state coup on President Trump. Clearly. There's no question about it. So this plays directly into their hands. This event plays directly into the hands of anyone who is trying to get the president out of office. Anthony Scaramucci, he went on ABC with George Stephanopoulos yesterday. Scaramucci laid it out. He said there are people in the White House that are trying to expel the president. Why are there people in our White House, in Trump's White House, trying to expel the president himself? That doesn't make any sense to me. Now they're turning around and saying that because of these events are going to be used, all of these events are going to be used as massive propaganda for the left to, number one, raise money. So anyone who thinks that the Charlottesville event was a good idea, you're an idiot. You're a complete idiot and you don't get how propaganda works. You don't get how any of this stuff works. Because the mainstream media is going to turn you into propaganda against Trump. Even if there wasn't violence, they were going to turn it into propaganda against Trump. See, that's what the left does. What the left does and what the media does is that they gin up this anger and resentment on both sides, and then they just kind of throw them at each other. The governor of Virginia, of course, as we know, is a former DNC chairman, Terry McAuliffe. So he is very, very much wanting both of these sides to be going against each other so that he can use the whole thing to blame Trump. We saw the exact same thing in 2014 in the Ukraine, where George Soros, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and the CIA, and John McCain all brought this out. All of them. So here's, okay, Trump is talking now here. Trump's talking now. We'll check it out. At least trying to hand put that all out together. But there's a lot of thoughts. So let's go watch Trump. I'll come back after that. On Charlottesville, just got done that. It was okay. You know, so let me explain this from a political operative perspective, because I'm someone that's worked in political communications. I'm someone who has crafted political crisis communications for politicians before. I've worked on statements when stuff like this has gone on in politics. I've made recommendations to congressmen, to senators, to candidates when they've been in situations like this. And here's what happens is, right? Usually you want to turn around and you want to say, the politicians want to say, well, what's the message I want to get across? What's the message that I want to say? And they say, well, and usually here's how most operatives are trained. Most political operatives are trained to say, sir, we've got to respond to the media. We've got to diffuse the media story. We've got to push back on these headlines, sir. We've got to take the heat off. We've got to do something about these headlines. Right? So the whole way that they look at it is they look at the headlines, they look at what the anti-Trump media is saying, and then try to come up with a response to those headlines. They come up with a response to those talking points. It's like they've got their talking points, so we have to respond to our talking points. No. If you're doing that, you're already accepting their narrative. You're already accepting their take on things. What you've got to do, the 4D warfare way to deal with this, is to create your own narrative. The 4D warfare way to do this is to create your own narrative, to create your own talking points, so that you're creating your own headlines. You have to create your own. The only way to stop a news cycle is to start a new news cycle, or in this case, to develop a news cycle. Because here's how this news cycle was going. This news cycle was going like this for the media. Here's how the media, I'm going to be the media right now. I'm going to be the media. Media is going to say, Trump supporter murders activist in Charlottesville. Trump refuses to disavow white nationalist Trump supporters. Trump finally disavows Trump's white nationalists after days of informing Trump that he has to disavow. See, so what they're going to say is the media is going to look at this as a victory. The left-wing media is going to look at this as a victory, and they're going to be emboldened. They're now going to be emboldened to say, look, all we have to do is put out headline after headline, talking point after talking point, get everybody to focus on this, and Trump will respond. That's what the media is going to see this as encouragement. The media is going to see this as, guys, Donald Trump has been disavowing David Duke for 20 years. Disavowing for 20 years. He's been disavowing white nationalist KKK for 20 years, okay? He's been doing this since his Reform Party candidacy, all right? He did it so many times throughout the campaign, it doesn't matter. They're going to do it. However, why didn't he also say, and I disavow left-wing violence. I disavow groups like Black Lives Matter, the ones that have been violent, that committed the Black Lives Matter kidnapping. I disavow Antifa, that has been conducting terrorist attacks against the United States and against Americans for 12 months at this point. I disavow La Raza, the organization that attacked Trump speeches in San Jose, that attacked Trump speeches in Chicago. I disavow these organizations. I disavow the people that set Ferguson on fire, that set Baltimore on fire. I disavow these organizations. I disavow all political violence. And what he should have done is got Terry McAuliffe to go up there and have Terry McAuliffe say at the White House today, and saying that we together, myself disavowing your, okay, I disavow your violence, and then you have to disavow the violence on the left as well. So you get Terry McAuliffe, the governor of Virginia, you get Trump as the president of the United States, because then you can take the bipartisan, you can take the bipartisanship, you can take the law and order stance, you can say, we disavow all of them. You disavow your side as well. Disavow the violence. And we're going to be talking later as well about the vice mayor of Charlottesville, because this is a guy who's a real piece of work. If you've seen anything that the vice mayor of Charlottesville has talked about in the past, we're going to be talking a lot about that very soon, because this is a guy who's going around acting like he's Mr. Sanctimonious, that he's trying to keep the peace. We're going to talk to this guy. We're going to talk about this guy. Oh yeah. So we should have disavowed all of them. Disavow all of them from all sides. And now what you've done is create your own talking points. You've created your own narrative. You've created your own situation, your own headlines. This way, you can now turn around and say, where's Hillary Clinton disavowing Antifa? Where's Hillary Clinton disavowing George Soros, who's returned the donations from George Soros that he gave to your campaign, that he gave to the DNC? Where's anyone disavowing the left? Where's anyone even talking about Antifa? How about James T. Hodgkinson? Today is the 2-month anniversary of James T. Hodgkinson and his attempted assassinations in Alexandria of 4 congressmen. Today is the 2-month anniversary. Any disavowal whatsoever. Has CARE ever disavowed ISIS? Has Keith Ellison ever disavowed ISIS? Has that ever happened? Has that ever happened? Has that ever happened? No, of course not. Of course it hasn't happened. Of course, they're not going to do it. So why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? Myself, what did I do? I held the Rally for Peace. I held the rally against all political violence, and I invited the actors from Shakespeare, Julius Caesar. I asked all sides to come together. I invited them to stand with me. I invited the Democrats to stand with us at the rally against political violence, because we stood against all political violence. That's what you have to do in this situation, because otherwise they're going to turn it around and say, you know what, it's all against you, and now you're not going to. Is he losing ground? I wouldn't necessarily say the president lost ground with any of this stuff. I wouldn't say that he lost ground with this statement, but it's neutral, right? It's neutral. It didn't go forward, it didn't go back. It's neutral. Now, but the problem is the media is still in the driver's seat. The media is still in the driver's seat. Of course, I'm not in the driver's seat right now. We've got the lovely and talented Tanya Tate is taking a turn of driving at the moment. She's doing a great job. So, they are not, that's why we did Shakespeare. When we went to Shakespeare, we said, stop the normalization of violence. Stop the normalization of political violence. The president what he should have done was denounce the mainstream media and their coverage of this violence, and they're fanning the flames of this violence. He should absolutely have called out the mainstream media, and they're fanning the flames of Ferguson, of Baltimore, of all of them. Completely denounced CNN. Jake Tapper for sharing violent punch-a-Nazi pictures today. Why wasn't that brought up? Why wasn't the mainstream media's incitements of violence? CNN is ISIS, guys. Remember this? CNN is ISIS. Why wasn't the mainstream media brought up today? We need to stand against them and their calls again and again and again and again for violence. The media has said for what, 18 months now, 19 months now, that the president is a Nazi, right? They said all through the campaign, before the campaign, during the campaign, president's a Nazi. Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler. And then that didn't work because he got elected. So then they turned it around. They completely threw that out and they said, well, okay, Trump isn't Hitler, Trump is a Russian. Yeah, that's it. And so for the last 8 months, it's been Trump is a Russian, Trump is a Russian, Trump is a Russian, Trump is a Russian. But see, the problem is they then failed to come up with any of that, what's that stuff called? You know, evidence, right? They didn't have any actual evidence that Trump was a Russian. So now they've turned around and they're saying, oh, you know what? He's not a Russian. He is a Nazi. You know what? Now so the Russian narrative completely collapsed. So now they're back to Trump is a Russian. Trump is a Russian. Trump is a Russian. Trump is a Russian. Right? It's ridiculous. They have no evidence for the Russia thing, so they're just turning around. They're staying on offense. The media never apologizes for getting it wrong. The media never apologizes for fanning the flames of violence. The media doesn't. Steve Scalise was shot because James T. Hodgkinson thought that he was a Russian agent. Okay? Go and look at James T. Hodgkinson's Twitter timeline, his Facebook. You can see it. He fell in love with this Russia conspiracy. Are ISIS. Or excuse me, these other guys are Nazis, so we have to go kill them. They said that these Trump supporters, people who wear MAGA hats, Antifa puts up propaganda all day long of kill the people with MAGA hats. Kill the people with MAGA hats, that's what you have to do. You have to kill the people with MAGA hats on. Anyone who wears a MAGA hat is a Nazi. That's what they always do. They do that constantly. They do that constantly. So where is the denunciation of the media? Where is the denunciation of Antifa? That's what should have been done today to turn this around. And the president should have condemned those groups and then turn around and say, and he said something like this. He should have said, I condemn the radical, racist groups that caused the violence in Charlottesville. I condemn the KKK. I condemn David Duke. I condemn the supremacists. I also condemn Antifa and the left-wing groups that have done that showed up with baseball bats and flamethrowers to attack those who did not intend violence. And finally, I absolutely condemn the outrageous conduct of the national media in their response to this by fanning the flames, by showing the death of a woman over and over again, by showing it, by propagandizing it, by pimping it out, by doing everything they could to make rich. How much money did CNN take in from advertisements of these things? If this is a terrorist attack, how much money did what is CNN doing with the advertising money that they raised during the coverage of Charlottesville? What is CNN doing? What is CNN doing with the advertising money? Are they going to be giving it away to charity? No. He should have said, I urge CNN, MSNBC to give away the advertising money that they raised from their coverage of Charlottesville to charity. They should give it away to a peaceful charity for the lives and the families of the state troopers of Virginia and around the country who died in the line of service. How about that? How about that? Now you're turning around and saying, what are they doing with the advertising dollars, the money that you raised off of this tragedy? What have you done with the money you've raised against that tragedy? Anyone? Has anyone mentioned anything about that? You haven't heard anyone say a peep about that. No, and you won't. And you won't. But that's why we got to keep doing what we're doing. That's why I'm not going to stop what I'm doing, and that's why I hope you guys don't stop what you're doing either. Jack Posobiec, author, Citizens for Trump, the new book that I'm working on, it's called 4D Warfare. It's all about this kind of stuff. It's all about how we push this stuff forward. It's how we beat the media at their own game. The media never never goes on defense. The media never apologizes. The media never takes their foot off the throat of the necks of free speech of Americans and anyone on the right. And that is why we need to push back against the left. That's why we need to push back against the liberal anti-Trump media. That's why we need to push back against them. And we're going to do it 24/7. Jack Posobiec, author of Citizens for Trump, author of 4D Warfare, coming soon.